When you file your own tax return, there will be a box on your tax return that asks if you filed all of the required 1099s, and you want to make sure that you can truthfully answer yes. If you check no, you could be charged fines, and if you say yes when you really didn't, well, that's lying on a federal document, which is illegal, so don't do that. But how in the world are you supposed to know if you need to send out a 1099? Well, as a business owner, it's your responsibility to figure it out. But don't worry, I'm here to help walk you through this process. Today, we're going to be talking about the 4 requirements you need to review to determine if you need to send a vendor a 1099. And even though you're not required to file these 1099s for a couple months, we're also going to be talking about what you can start doing today to get a jump start on this process so you're not scrambling around the night before they are due. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Boutique Bookkeeper Show, where we take the mystery out of your money and make your numbers make sense. I'm Megan, virtual bookkeeper and bookkeeping coach, and I love helping female boutique owners just like you finally feel confident about the financial side of your business. If you're tired of feeling anxious every time you have to open QuickBooks, or if you're making sales but constantly left wondering, where did all that money go? You're in the right place. We'll cover all things bookkeeping and taxes, all in plain English, so you can be less intimidated by the numbers and finally start to use them to help you grow a profitable boutique. So, if you're ready to stop avoiding this whole numbers thing and start keeping more of the money you make, grab your coffee and your calculator and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Boutique Bookkeeper Show. I'm your host, Megan, and today we are going to be talking about one of your year-end tax requirements as a business owner, and that is filing and sending out 1099s. So, in simple terms, a 1099 is a tax form that reports the amounts you have paid to others outside of employee wages. You might already be familiar with the 1099 documents you receive each year from Shopify or whatever sales and payment platforms you use. And that's their requirement. They're required to report the amount of payments that they've made to you and your business. But it's not just these large corporations that have this responsibility. You are also responsible for filing and sending 1099s to other individuals and companies that you have paid throughout the year. Filing these 1099s is your way of letting the IRS know that you paid these certain individuals or businesses and that they need to pay the taxes on it. Essentially, you're helping the IRS make sure that these individuals and businesses don't commit tax fraud. If you're feeling a little nervous and stressed out about it, just hold up. You don't need to send a 1099 to everyone you paid throughout the year, just if they meet a couple requirements. Requirement number 1 is you paid them $600 or more throughout the calendar year. This threshold is increasing beginning January 1st, 2026, but for payments made in the calendar year 2025, the threshold is $600. Requirement number 2, you paid them for a service, rent, or interest. And what you paid these vendors for will actually determine the type of 1099 document you send them. If you paid someone for a service, such as photographers, virtual assistants, models, store cleaners, even a bookkeeper, you'll issue a 1099 NEC, which stands for non-employee compensation. If you paid someone for rent, like your landlord, you're going to send them a 1099 MISC, or miscellaneous. And if you paid someone for interest, like maybe you purchased your boutique from the previous owner, and you're on a payment plan with them that includes both principal and interest, you're going to be sending them a 1099 INT, short for interest, to report the amount of interest you have paid them throughout the year. Requirement number 3, you paid them via cash, check, ACH, or a personal payment processor such as Venmo, Zelle, or PayPal Friends and Family. And requirement number 4, you need to issue a 1099 if this individual or company does not file taxes as a corporation. The only exception to this last requirement is a lawyer, so you may need to send a 1099 to lawyers regardless of how they actually file their taxes. So at the end of every year, you are responsible for reviewing your own bookkeeping records to determine which businesses meet the first 3 requirements. So quick refresher, you paid them $600 or more for a service, rent, or interest. You paid them via cash, check, ACH, or personal payment processor, but you're not necessarily going to know how the business files their taxes, right? So in order to know how a business files their taxes, you need to request a copy of that individual or business's W-9. This is going to have all of their legal business information on it, such as their legal business name, their address, and then either their social security number if they're an individual, or their EIN. And it will also include a checkbox that indicates how they actually file their taxes. If they checked one of the boxes that indicated they are either a C Corp or an S Corp, you will not need to issue a 1099. When you receive these completed W-9s back from your vendors, be sure to file them someplace safe, because if you are required to file a 1099 for them, you're going to need all of that information on the W-9 in order to fill out your 1099. All right, so we talked about all the requirements. Now let's talk about when this actually needs to be done. So the deadline to file and send out these 1099 tax documents to the vendors is typically January 31st, and it can be adjusted to the next business day if that falls on a weekend, which I believe it actually does in 2026. I think the deadline is actually February 2nd this coming year. But even though this deadline is a little over 2 months away still, you can start preparing now so that you're not so stressed out in January trying to track down all of these vendor W-9s and comb through your bookkeeping records. So start reviewing all of the amounts that you've paid to your vendors now, and if they already meet those first 3 requirements we talked about, start reaching out and requesting a copy of their W-9 if you don't already have it. Sometimes vendors, they need a couple follow-ups and reminders, so you really don't want to be leaving this for the very last minute so you're not hounding your vendors for them to send you their W-9. And I recommend anytime you start working with a new vendor, go ahead and request a copy of their W-9 right away before you even pay them anything. That way you have all the information up front if you think you might need to send them a 1099 at a later date. All right, the last thing I want to talk to you about today is actually how you go about filing these documents. So if you're old school, you could actually order blank copies of whatever 1099 forms you need directly from the IRS. They are free to order, but honestly, I prefer to use the software to do it just because it saves time. There is typically a small fee associated with filing these 1099s via software, but it's about a couple dollars each 1099. In my opinion, totally worth it, the time it saves versus handwriting out all of these 1099 documents that you have to send out. If you're already using QuickBooks, you can use QuickBooks to review and file them. I typically use a separate software called Tax99. It just works better for my brain. But typically, if you use a software, you just want to make sure that it files a copy of your 1099 with the IRS, and you also have the ability to file it with the state agencies if your state requires that. You also want to make sure that a copy is sent to the vendor. Typically, you can choose whether it's sent electronically to the vendor if you are able to provide their email address, or via snail mail, and if you choose to send it via snail mail, typically either you can print and mail it yourself, or you can have the software company print and mail it for you, again for another additional fee to cover the postage. All right, that is all that I have, so just a quick recap before we close out for today. You will be required to send out a 1099 tax document to anyone who meets the following criteria. Number 1, you've paid them $600 or more in 2025. Number 2, you paid them for a service, rent, or interest. Number 3, you paid them via cash, check, ACH, or a personal payment processor. So if you paid them via debit or credit card, you're off the hook here. And finally, if they meet the first 3 requirements, you're going to need to request a copy of their W-9 to see if they meet the 4th requirement, which is they do not file their taxes as a corporation. These tax documents need to be filed and sent to the vendors by January 31st of each year, but please do not wait until January 30th to start this process. You can start today. Make sure that all of your bookkeeping is up to date, and you can start reviewing your vendors to see which ones have already met the first 3 requirements so you can start reaching out and requesting their W-9s. If your bookkeeping is in a less than ideal state right now, or maybe you haven't even touched it all year, if that sounds like you, I would love to help you get it all organized and up to date inside of our Bookkeeping Made Simple for Boutiques community. When you enroll, you'll get access to step-by-step videos that show you exactly how to set up and use QuickBooks Online to track every single penny flowing through your business. And when every transaction is accounted for, running reports that help you review your vendors for these 1099 requirements is super easy. So if that sounds like something you need, you can go to findingfreedomfinancial.com/course to learn more and enroll. But that's all that I have for you today. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode. I'll see you there. Hey there, and thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope that I shared something that helped you feel just a little bit more confident in understanding all the numbers in your boutique business. If you found this helpful, don't forget to go and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way for other boutique owners just like you to find this podcast so I can help them feel just a little bit more confident in their numbers as well. If you have any questions about what you heard today, hop on over to Instagram and send me a DM at Finding Freedom Financial. I'll be back again real soon, but in the meantime, go implement or take action on something you learned today. I promise your future self will thank you.